Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's Tuesday Talks webinar. My name is Susan Brown, and I am the Associate Director of Family Programs. It is a pleasure to be hosting a webinar on tonight's topic, Beyond Boston, Global Opportunities in Support Services. Joining me tonight are several of my colleagues. I am going to let them take a moment to introduce themselves.
Hi there, my name is Nora Salmon, and I'm with the Global Experience Office.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aspa Papanastasiou with Employer Engagement and Career Design.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Lumbra, Assistant Director of Housing within Off-Campus Housing and Support Services.
So tonight we're going to be discussing several different topics. Here's our agenda tonight. Northeastern's Global Network, the Global Experience Opportunities and variety of deadlines that students have to meet, Global Co-ops, the process and timeline, and then we're going to be hearing from Off-Campus Housing and Support Services. And at the conclusion of our presentation, we will take questions and answers. We do ask tonight that you refrain from asking any personal questions during the webinar, but feel free, at the end, we will put up our contact information, and feel free to email us any questions to the parents at northeastern.edu. So tonight we're going to get started. I'm going to start off with Nora. Nora, thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to hearing a lot about the Global Network.
Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for listening tonight. Tonight we'll touch upon Northeastern's Global Network, which is a very large network and all-encompassing all over the world and different parts of the United States now. We have different presentations, and the offices represented tonight, we will talk about how we collaborate together, and specifically I'll be focusing on study abroad and dialogue programs. So just to get started, this is a global-focused webinar. So why participate in a global experience? It's definitely a part of the Northeastern culture and curriculum to talk about that. A key piece for study abroad in particular is that when students go on a study abroad program, whether it be a dialogue or semester abroad, students earn Northeastern credit towards their degree. So they don't need to take a leave of absence, or it's not transfer credit coming back to their transcripts. So it's a big piece of what our office does and works with many of our international partners to ensure that students are earning Northeastern credit. When students go abroad, they're connecting with international faculty, potentially doing research abroad, meeting with students and collaborating on international projects as well. This is the key piece of Northeastern to bring that back to Boston with a new gained understanding of intercultural competence and potentially an understanding and an increased competency in a new language. So as a Northeastern student, students can really go abroad for many different lengths of time. We like to say that there's something for everyone, something that suits all different academic backgrounds as well as just kind of personal interests. So if you're a student that has a more rigid major or just doesn't want to go abroad for a particularly long period of time, there's short length programs as well as full year programs potentially. So the key programs I'll be talking about tonight are dialogues, which are offered during summer terms. They're about 4 to 6 weeks long. A semester abroad for us can also mean summer. So you can go during one of the summer terms, fall or spring semester, and fall or spring is a roughly 4-month experience. ASPA will be talking in much greater detail about Global Co-op, which are 6-month experiences. And then just to let you know, a lot of students are doing more combined experiences. So whether it's a full year abroad, but meaning that they're combining a Global Co-op, potentially followed by a study abroad, or vice versa, maybe tacking on a dialogue. So students are really charting their own paths and also exploring Northeastern Network campuses. So when can your students study abroad? And many of you might know we have the NUN program, which is first semester. We also have Global Quest, which is our second semester program. But the focus of tonight will be dialogues and study abroad. And students can go on either a dialogue or a summer study abroad starting the summer after they've completed 2 successful semesters, the summer after their first year. So Dialogue of Civilizations, it's a very timely presentation because the dialogues open on November 1st. So just to give you a nice overview of what the dialogues are, so these are, Northeastern is nationally known for these programs, and we're gaining traction and they're growing each year. So we have a dialogue represented in each college now, and they're faculty-led programs. So 1 or 2 faculty lead students in groups about 15 to 30 students and different areas of expertise. So they might have a program, whether it be in engineering or in accounting, and they take these students, they interact with industry, they might interact with universities in that area, as well as locals from a particular area. Students take 2 classes, and the classes can be towards their major or just supporting classes. An example that I like to use is we have a program called Accounting in Spain. So that accounting major might take 2 classes towards their major, check that off. But then also that same accounting student might want to go on the literature and film in Ireland and fulfill their arts credit. So it's a different way to kind of map your degree and enhance it based on if you want to explore a minor or dual major, which many students do. An exciting thing to note is that upcoming we will have 78 programs running in summer 2020 across summer 1 and summer 2. So lots of information on this slide, but some key dates that I will focus on are November 1st, we're opening the dialogue so students can review and start applying if they're ready. We do have a priority deadline for applicants to apply for December 3rd, which means after December 3rd, faculty can begin reviewing the applications and potentially accepting students on a rolling basis. The final deadline for dialogues this year is January 15th. And then next week, very exciting, your students are getting lots of emails about this. We have 2 different dialogues fairs. One's on Monday evening and then Tuesday during the day. It's a really great time for students to connect directly with faculty. Just to go over the cost of a dialogue in a little more detail, students are taking 2 courses and earning 8 credits, and then every program has a dialogue fee. The fees range from $500 to $3,500, so you're paying Northeastern tuition for 8 credits and then a fee on top of that. What's included in the fee is international airfare round trip, and then a big piece is the accommodation for the duration of the program. So basically anything in country except a lot of like your basic, we have a lot of group meals, but your day-to-day lunch, that would be independent, but everything else, like you're going to a museum, local transportation, that is all included in the fee. There are many scholarships available specifically for dialogues as well. So study abroad, I mean, a key difference, both are study abroad dialogue and study abroad as the commonly used term, are a form of just going internationally and learning in a different context. So study abroad at Northeastern versus learning from Northeastern faculty, this is going to a host university and learning directly from international faculty amongst peers, not just from Northeastern, but potentially from all over the world. So deadlines for summer 2020, the applications will open January 1st, and then there's a deadline of March 1st. And for those of you who have students who are thinking ahead, fall 2020 applications will open January 1st, and the deadline is April 1st. This is just a few samples. So we have about 125 international university partners around the globe. Here's 4 that just kind of map different areas of the globe. An example that's a very popular program, London School of Economics. So we send about 150 students every summer to LSE, and then another 150 to 200 during the course of the academic year. And University of Sydney is another example where we have multiple iterations of global programming. So just keep in mind, and each one of my colleagues, Kelsey and Aspa, will talk about support, but when your student is abroad and not physically in Boston, that they're not alone. They're not just independently out there in the world. They're definitely having an independent and kind of self-initiated experience, but they have the support of someone like myself and Geo, a Geo advisor, working them through the application and the pre-departure process. We have peer advisors that work in our office and are accessible Monday through Thursday until 7 p.m. and then Friday until 5 p.m. that can help talk the students through their personal experience and through the application. Northeastern partners with, they have an international safety office. We have a team here that helps liaise with GEO and our international partners to ensure that students anywhere from maybe a physical, mental, or just emotional support is needed. So we work with all of that. And then a key thing to note is that all students on a global experience are enrolled in WorldAware, which is a 24/7 emergency support service. In terms of financing study abroad in general, while studying abroad, students are paying Northeastern tuition, the same thing as if they were here in campus in Boston. Financial aid can apply. And what we like to say to students is that however you're funding your experience here in Boston, you would utilize those same avenues to fund your experience abroad, whether it be loans, financial aid, student financial services, and GEO work closely together to match that while the student is abroad. Additionally, we have scholarships, grants, and fellowships available for all students to apply to. Lastly on this slide, and apologies that the font is fairly small, but it's just two student quotes, and they're two very different students. So the first student, Gabriella, she's a senior. She'll be graduating in May, and she took full advantage of growing on many different types of global programming. And then another student, Alex, he just started his second year and chose to go on a dialogue after his first year. So I'll just pause for about 30 seconds and let you read these quotes, and then we'll move on to ASPA.
Thank you, Nora. I will start with an overview of the co-op program. As you are aware, the cooperative education is the cornerstone of the Northeastern educational model. So we have about 11,000 students participating annually, and students are eligible for co-ops during their second year. They can do up to 3 co-ops, and that means an experience upon graduation of 1.5 years if they choose to do all 3. Out of this large number, we have about 600 students on global co-ops per year, and we participate with 3,000 plus employers that offer opportunities in more than 138 countries. As you can imagine, we are managing some high numbers, and the way we do it is we have a few Northeastern teams working together, as you have already heard, and I'll be able to cover more information later on. Nora already mentioned the benefits of global experiences, and I think the most important one out of this slide that I wanted to briefly refer to is attaining global fluency. And I am borrowing this definition from a woman by the name of Alexandra Totorovitz, who said that global fluency is the ability to understand and collaborate across the complexities of language, culture, and multiple time zones. And I think that's the best way to describe the benefit of such an experience, and also our commitment, Northeastern's commitment, to really educate the next generation of global citizens. Our global co-op opportunities reflect the preferences and the identities of Northeastern students. We categorize them in 3 ways. They can be direct employers, universities, or agency partners, and all of them are really long-standing relationships with Northeastern. I'll give you an example of the employer co-op partners, and as you can see, some of these names cover either Fortune 500 all the way to small startup companies, and these relationships are really developed either by staff business trips or leads from our colleagues in advancement or alumni relations, various communities, Northeastern communities abroad, and obviously very targeted outreach in various regions of the world. The partners that are universities, that's an interesting one. We partner very closely with GEO, so oftentimes the study abroad partners can also become co-op partners. But we also get a lot of advice and guidance from our faculty. So Northeastern faculty has their own connections in various universities, and these are popular sites primarily for research co-ops. Lastly, the global co-op partners involve agencies, and that is an interesting category. Northeastern currently partners with more than 20 agencies all over the world that offer comprehensive services for a fee. So for students who have never traveled abroad, or for certain locations where we feel that they need to receive additional services, through a placement through an agency will offer housing, meals, 24-hour emergency service, cultural activities, and so on and so forth. All of these agencies have been vetted primarily by my team, and we stay in touch when students are placed abroad. Let's talk a little bit about expenses. This is a favorite subject. I would say that the majority of the domestic co-ops are paid With global co-ops, it gets a little more complicated, and that is because of country, visa regulations, and the company size. The good thing about it is that oftentimes employers can offer assistance in other ways beyond salary. So we have a lot of examples where employers abroad will offer housing, free housing to students, or free meals, or a combination of, or they will pay for the travel expenses for the student to visit the country and then back to the United States. There is a designated fund from the university, which is called the Presidential Global Scholarship, and that is available based on need. We advise students to apply to the fund early on so they can find out exactly how much money they can get. Oftentimes that information helps them make decisions where to go and for how long. And our agency partners, oftentimes they will offer discounts to Northeastern students, so it becomes less expensive. Similarly with GEO, there are scholarships and fellowships for global co-ops, and this information becomes available to students so that they can make sound decisions based on the funding that is available. Again, also similarly with GEO, and you will hear that again and again, we want to make sure that our students are safe abroad while they're having amazing experiences. So specifically for global co-ops, the co-op coordinator is the key person that monitors the student placement and stays in touch with the students after they get placed. In addition to the co-op coordinator, all of these departments that are mentioned on this slide offer assistance to ensure that students are always safe, they're having a good time, and there is a quality experience above all. The co-op timeline. So right now we are at the peak of the placement period for spring 2020. So this is a process that started early in the fall. We always emphasize the need for students to start early when global co-ops are concerned. We offer a variety of events, as you can see, to connect students with Northeastern departments and also with their peers so they can hear about all the opportunities that are available to them. Meetings with co-op coordinators and GEO advisors specifically around visas are happening, they are ongoing, and the last placements ideally should happen until the end of November. For spring, again, we're going to start very early. We have the Global Co-op Winterfest early January. Again, it will be a series of events so students can become aware of global co-op opportunities. And then the rest of the events will happen during the semester with a placement deadline for April 30th. These are ideal deadlines. We sometimes have a few cases that are beyond those, but in order to make sure that students really have good experiences and they start on time, we always advise for early placement dates. So how parents and loved ones can get involved? So our advice is to always start the conversations about options early on, whether the student is considering a study abroad opportunity, a dialogue, or a co-op. It is always key to start early. At the same time, it will be good to encourage global travel. We feel it's an amazing gift that this university is offering to the students. There is financial support for this. There are long-standing partners, as we mentioned earlier. So we obviously want to encourage that type of experience. Advise your students to start early and be very detailed with their planning, including information about scholarships and budgeting. I think it will be fun to have conversations about regions of interest. We supply them with access to various software. Oftentimes you will hear it. It's called GlobeSmart and Going Global. These are free software platforms for Northeastern students where they really understand information and processes for different cultures and different countries. So I think it will be a fun activity to have these conversations with them about different destinations. Another way you can partner with us is to share the information about our office with your friends. For parents who are abroad, we are always interested to get connected to you. That's how we add on to our global network, and oftentimes these opportunities abroad are actually thanks to parents like you. And finally, I would like to leave you with this testimonial. This is from a Northeastern dad who is currently visiting his son in Mumbai, India. Bridge Cultures is a type of an agency that we developed a really great partnership with, and they're offering a variety of global co-ops with startups in India. So we'll give you a few seconds to just review this testimonial. And now I will turn it to my colleague Kelsey, who will be able to describe the off-campus housing and support services.
Hi everyone, thank you Aspa. My name is Kelsey and I work for Off-Campus Housing and Support Services. On the screen now you can just see our contact information for off-campus housing. So I would recommend just jotting that down just to make sure your student has it, or perhaps you have it as well, to be able to use us as a resource for your global housing needs for your student. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, specifically for the NU off-campus, and then just for Instagram we also have an NU_Beyond Boston Instagram handle as well, where students share their global co-op experiences. So as Nora and Aspa mentioned, off-campus housing and support services is just one of the support providers that we provide your student going on a global experience. So of course, global housing will be an important need for your student before they go abroad. This is definitely an important consideration, and you want to make sure your student has this in place prior to leaving. Definitely the earlier the better. So as far as what we can help with the global housing search and relocation advice. So of course knowing where to find housing abroad and how to prepare for that relocation. We have in-country resources that students can use as well. For example, many of the things we suggest is of course asking your employer or agency for suggestions. We can also connect students with students who have traveled to the area already, or if there are area alumni as well. We can also help your student address their on or off-campus housing while they're away. So of course, if they're in an off-campus housing situation where they already have signed a year-long lease, we can help them sublet or help with that process. If they already signed up for on-campus housing and need to get out of that commitment to go on a global experience, then we can help coordinate that, that process as well. We also help with support and education. So we run many programs hoping to educate students on the support we provide. So knowing what to look for in your housing search. We also help with lease reviews, landlord issues, and roommate issues, any questions or concerns your student may have. Finally, we help with community connection. So I mentioned this earlier, but one of the most helpful ways to find a housing opportunity may be through a connection, whether that be a parent or through an alumni who lives in the area. And of course, we can introduce students who have already been to the area that your student is headed to, or introduce them to students who are already in country and may want to provide help to that student moving there shortly. And finally, we also provide a link to campus life while your student is away. Now, there are several considerations for housing abroad that your student will want to consider. Keep in mind that many of these considerations, we actually work closely with the International Safety Office when making these considerations as well. So just some questions to consider. So what type of housing is common or available in this location? For example, are apartments or dorm-style student housing available? Is your student studying nearby a university who may have off-campus housing options? Or are homestays more popular as well? These are all things to consider, and we can help your student walk through this process and give them the resources to walk them through this process as well. Next, of course, a reasonable housing budget. So doing this research beforehand, using those tools that ASPA mentioned, the GlobeSmart and Going Global, researching the cost of living in that area to accommodate for a reasonable housing budget will be an important consideration as well. Next, considering the various neighborhoods and how close are they to your potential worksite or university. And then finally, what will be my means of getting around? So making sure that your student has a way of commuting to their worksite or their university, whether it's walking, biking, public transportation, ensuring they know the reliability of that public transportation. If they plan on biking, how will they acquire a bike? And of course, keep in mind that we walk the student through each of these and also collaborate closely with our International Safety Office, especially with the safety, especially with neighborhood safety evaluations as well. Next, on the screen here, you can see many of the programs and events that we provide. First, we have events to learn about housing and life abroad with a program called Beyond Borders, where we feature a different country each month, featuring a student panel of students who have co-opted in that country, who have studied abroad in that country, or who are from that country originally. We also have Beyond Boston housing workshops. And next, we have a pre-departure orientation, which is actually required, where your student will be presented lots of information about safety abroad and how to prepare. Next, we have events to meet other students prior to leaving and in that country. So of course, pre-departure orientation, they'll be able to meet other students headed to their country. If they are planning on doing a domestic co-op, they can attend our Bon Voyage event, where they'll meet other co-op students who may be traveling to other cities within the United States. And then finally, we have a Beyond Boston Community Ambassador Program, where they can help plan events for other co-op students in their region. And finally, programs to share global co-op experiences. We have Beyond Boston Instagrammers, who actually provide content for the Instagram that was listed on that first page, that NU_Beyond Boston. And then we also have Beyond Boston bloggers as well, who share their experiences. Just some other resources I'd like to touch upon. So of course, we can help in the global housing process, but we also encourage you to check out our website. We have a handbook that you can download and checklist to review right on our website at northeastern.edu/offcampus. We have a Lease Genius program and can provide support with problems that you may be experiencing with your lease. We always encourage you to have your lease reviewed prior to signing it so that your student knows what they're signing, and we can review for any illegal clauses. And then we can also help with common issues such as illegal fees, security deposit issues, repairs or maintenance, or roommate conflicts as well. Other events that were not mentioned previously, we have a newsletter that you're more than welcome and encouraged to subscribe to. We have community meetings and a breakfast club on Sundays here in Boston, where students can clean up their local neighborhood. We also host an apartment fair, which will happen in February. So maybe your student is on a global co-op right now. Maybe they're coming to live on campus in the spring semester, but they'll be moving off campus for the fall of 2020. That apartment fair will be a good opportunity to learn about off-campus options. And finally, we have an apartment database where your student can find Boston area apartments here on campus. and they can visit that at aptsearch.northeastern.edu, where they can connect with realtors and landlords, find roommates, and post their sublet, or find a sublet as well.
So on the screen right now, you'll see all of our contact information, and we also will put another screen up that will connect you to the parents and families office, so that if you have questions, I can also direct them to my colleagues. So at this time, we are going to begin taking questions. You can type them on the right-hand side of your screen in the Q&A pod. We'll be happy to answer as many as we can, and they are coming in already. So Nora, you actually had mentioned, I believe it was you that mentioned about the study abroad, the fee that they have. It was either $500 to $3,500, and you said that it included airfare. Do the students fly together, or do they go on their own? How does that work?
Yeah, so for dialogues, there are a couple programs that students can book their flight independently, but I would say it's like 95% of programs have a round-trip airfare included in the program fee. That airfare is from Boston to the destination and back to Boston. We know that many students, particularly for summer 2, which begins in July, they might go home first, and home is outside of Boston. So we work with students on an individual basis to, there's a deviation waiver, and that we work with different flight agents, and we can work with the students, so whether the student wants to leave from a different destination and maybe meet the students on the layover flight, or if they want to fly directly to wherever their host destination is. So a lot of work on that, but what's included is a round-trip airfare from Boston.
Okay, thank you. If a student is in the NU program right now, when can they start taking advantage of some of these different opportunities, whether it be a study abroad or a global co-op?
Yeah, so so they're counted as one semester, so basically they could go on a dialogue this summer as well. Part of why the deadline is extended to January 15th is NUN students can apply from abroad, but if they wanted to connect with the faculty or meet with them one-on-one, they do have until January to apply to the remaining programs that are open.
Okay. Here's a question. Can you combine study abroad and global co-ops in the same year?
I'll take that again. So, yes, it just depends on the location. So we see students that might do more than one location, and part of that can just come down to visa concerns. So, depending on the location, you might not be able to physically stay in one location for 12 months, let's say. But some students, that's totally fine. And we see a lot of students. I mean, Northeastern students, as you know, they're your students. They're pretty. They take a lot of initiative, so very ambitious. So we see students, what's really great is it can go both ways. So they might be studying abroad at a university, identify a faculty, and then they'll stay there and do a research global co-op. Or vice versa, they might be on their co-op and think like this would be a great university to study abroad at. And so we work with them in both directions. And sometimes it comes down to visa issues, but students are really mapping their own path here. And once they figure out their global co-op, or their co-op cycle, whether it's fall or spring, part of all of our roles on this panel is to coordinate how that works.
So do dialogues usually have a GPA minimum? And someone's asking, for the first year student, how will they know what that is? If that's
Yeah,
a
that's a good question. Yeah, very good question. So there is a minimum GPA across all programs of a 2.5. Some faculty choose a higher GPA requirement. The highest we've seen is 3.0, so it's anywhere in between 2.5 and 3.0. We have a lot of first semester students applying with basically a 0 GPA because they don't have one yet. But students are welcome to apply whether they're on NUN or on campus in their first semester without a GPA. But basically we do, once they finish the term in December, they do cross-check. So in the case that the GPA for some reason drops significantly, that is a conversation to be had. And luckily it's not commonly had. Typically the students that are applying and making the connections with the faculty are those that are able to maintain a 2.5.
Thank you. Let's see. So we have a parent asking, If my daughter wanted to work at co-op in a Spanish-speaking country, what level of Spanish would she need to have upon arrival? Do they have to be fluent in it?
This is a great question, and actually I love answering that one, and that is based on experience. So a lot of the placements in Spanish-speaking countries are through agencies, and agencies are very clear around this. The level needs to really be intermediate to fluent depending on the experience. So for example, if a student is a nurse or they are in a position where they are interacting with the public, obviously the level needs to be much higher. The same is true for direct employers. Oftentimes they will, in the job description, they will clarify what level of Spanish they will require.
Okay. I know a lot of students apply for the dialogue stuff. How do you determine who is chosen? Is it first by first? Is there a certain qualification?
So it's the faculty choose. It's definitely case by case by the faculty. So there's a couple considerations to keep in mind. So what is known is that there's a predetermined number. So a faculty might say, like, they've already know that they're taking 15 students, and then they might know that they are willing to take 25 students. So and that's something that someone like myself, if a student meets with an advisor, we can tell them, like, this is a competitive program because there's fewer spots, or this program, you know, we have some programs that go to some pretty unique destinations, and maybe there's less competition because it takes a particularly adventurous student to go to that destination. In most cases, faculty, so when a student applies, there's 2 essay questions. Faculty review that, and then in most cases, faculty will ask the students to come in for an interview. If your student's abroad, the interview can be over Skype or even over the phone, depending on where they are. And the faculty kind of really base it on multiple factors, whether it be the GPA, their essay questions, their interview. And they're also really, I think in a lot of cases, they're trying to find a nice balance. So even though we might have a program that's rooted in the humanities, they like to have maybe some engineering students, some science students, because I think part of the Northeastern complete, like the interdisciplinary aspect of Northeastern is to have students really work together and collaborate on projects, and dialogues are a key place to do that.
So you had mentioned all those dialogues are going to be open November 1st, correct?
Yeah, so that's the goal.
Yeah.
So if you're counting, because I quoted 78 and you don't see 78, some might trickle after November 1st, but we're hoping for the vast majority to be posted by November 1st.
So this is a housing question. My son is a 4th-year student and has accepted his 3rd co-op in California. Is there any housing or relocation assistance that could be provided to him?
Absolutely. Great question. So as far as domestically, Northeastern actually has leased housing in several locations across the United States. So that's going to be 2 locations in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and California. So depending on where your son or daughter is headed to in California, the leased housing that we have there, it's actually in Mountain View, California, right in Silicon Valley, could be an option. And then we also have housing, and we can't officially call it leased housing, but we have a very strong partnership with a location in San Francisco as well. You can either email the parents@northeastern.edu or offcampus@northeastern.edu to find out more about that California housing.
Great. So this is a great question. I think parents are asking, who is more important in this process? And I don't think it's a question of who is important. I think it's more of a partnership. Should they be working more with their co-op advisor or someone from the Global Services Office?
I think, so I'll focus that. I'm more focused on the study abroad side, but I do think a student's first advising point of contact typically tends to be their academic advisor, who puts them on that co-op cycle and lets them know, like, these are classes you must take on campus, and then these are courses that you can find in a global destination. And then from that, then it's kind of what students are deciding, do I want to do a global co-op? Do I want to go on a study abroad or a dialogue? And they work hand in hand. So I think a lot of times, and what hopefully we've communicated tonight, is that there's a lot of cross-collaboration. So students, they might have we like to call it like a tiered approach, where they're working with their academic advisor, a geo advisor, and then for a global co-op, it's a co-op advisor in their college. And again, another team that we do collaborate with greatly is their financial aid advisors as well, to make sure that all the dots are connected.
So speaking of financial aid, a couple questions in regard to finances. How do people, I know you had a link on, and we'll actually be sending people these slides, so if you miss something, we'll be sending it to you, or of course you can email us. But how do people find out if there are more scholarships available or fellowships available to them?
For dialogue or study
Dialogue,
abroad.
yeah. And do they put that information on when they first fill out the FAFSA form?
No, well, so I don't know how to answer that with the FAFSA directly. That's a good question for student financial services. But in terms of, so ASPA can speak a little more to the Presidential Global Scholarship, which is for co-op. But through GEO, the Global Experience Office, we have grants which are need-based, and then we have fellowships, which any student is welcome to apply. And we have students that blog, do video blogging, photography. So that's part of what they earn with the award is to, it's a nice way to keep track of their experience and share it with their peers as well. So that's a big piece of it, but basically there's set funding that's dedicated for dialogue students, dedicated for a semester abroad, and the dialogue scholarships as well as fellowships are general though, so it's not you're applying for a funding to go towards just a general, but not program specific. And then for study abroad, we have regional as well as university specific scholarships.
And the Presidential Global Scholarship is specifically for global co-ops, and that is because our president really has made the commitment to send as many students as possible abroad on the global professional experiences. In addition to that, on our website, we have information about other scholarships and fellowships that are nationwide. And so students can apply to those as well, and the one doesn't affect the other. So a student can have a Presidential Global Award and at the same time apply for another type of scholarship.
Well, we're talking about co-ops, so someone's asking, are they the same, the global co-ops on the same cycle as someone doing one domestic?
Yes, yeah, they're always semester-long programs, so it is, so students are advised to start their search on global a little earlier because of the complexity of a global co-op placement, but they can also be looking for domestic, same terms.
Someone's saying, looking ahead, do you happen to know the years for 2021? The dialogue, I have to feel
what dialogues are for 2021?
Yes.
No, and I'll be honest, I don't even know the full 2020. It's being
That's what I
released
thought,
to
yeah.
all of us daily. I will say we definitely, if anyone wants to reach out directly to GEO, we do know that there's faculty that run every year or some faculty that run every year. So we might be able to disclose that, but it really is dependent on the faculty and the college. So great question. But one thing I'd like to just plug for us too is with the parents' email is on the GEO website, which as Susan mentioned, I listed it on the slides. We have a chat feature, so you can always enter in a question, kind of if any of you have done online shopping, it's similar. And then we have a team of student workers as well as GEO staff that are responding to that during business hours 9 to 5. So it's a great way to, if you think of these questions off the cuff, we will be able to support you with answers.
Question about a visa. Do we provide students with any assistance with getting their visa, or is that something they're on their own with?
So anyone has to apply for their visa on their own because there's no way someone can apply for a visa on your behalf. But what we do support students with is supporting documentation that they might need to present to the consulate or wherever they're going. And then we provide them with visa guidance, so we do understand, like, this is the passport you hold, this is the destination you're going to, and this is the amount of time you're going for. Based on that, we give advice saying, like, we recommend that you apply for this category, and this is the documents you need to apply. And then we guide students to then apply on their own.
I can add one more piece here, that from a job development perspective, when we are reaching out to employers, GEO has been, the GEO team has been kind enough to share with us information about the key locations. So when we reach out to employers, if there is employer involvement and we need to have documentation from employers, we already know that in advance. So then we can be ahead of the process, and when the student accepts the position, we already know what documentation will be needed for that GEO advice.
But Nora, I think you had mentioned that you can do a week-long one during spring break. Is there any information available about that?
Yeah, so those are called embedded programs. Basically, that's a class that you take here on campus during the spring semester, and then it's typically during spring break, sometimes alternate. And then what they do is students, whatever class they're taking here, they have like an experiential component, and they go to a location to conduct a research. They might do, it's kind of, in some cases, it's a quick dialogue. They might be meeting with certain industry. A few I can just name briefly is, so one we have is called Family Business, and it typically goes to either the United Arab Emirates or Bahrain. And those are connecting students with local businesses and the faculty leads, and just they do a lot of project work and consulting. We have one, for example, for physical therapy students in Switzerland. That one's really neat because they work doing like cross technique with the Swiss students, and then at the end of the semester, the Swiss students come back and finish the project work here in Boston. So kind of a mixed thing with that, but since those classes are things that you enroll in with your regular college, the way you would enroll for your classes, which is coming up, GEO can definitely connect, but that's actually best to talk with your academic advisor about.
So we do have time for one or two more questions. I think you mentioned there was a program in Denmark, a DIS program in Denmark. Is that for the fall, spring, both?
Yeah, I don't know if I actually mentioned it, but but that is a thing. So we do partner with DIS for varying lengths of time, and so I believe DMS is a fall or spring semester, and if I'm misquoting myself, you can find it on the GEO website. And then for students that want to be in Denmark, we do partner with Copenhagen Business School, which we have summer programs, particularly for business students.
Dialogue someone's asking, is it only open to freshman students? So.
No, so that's actually a misnomer. It's heavily advertised and encouraged because we think it's a great thing for students to do right after their first year. It's kind of a gateway experience because we find that students, after they do a dialogue, it might give them that kind of initiative to then explore a 6-month global co-op. So we see that a lot. But actually some dialogues, depending on the classes, they might have upper level classes that actually only upperclassmen can take. It really varies. And what's nice is that if the dialogues don't have a restriction on the classes, you'll have students that might be in their 5th year and might be in their 1st year, and those students really, it's nice to have them all work together too.
Another question regarding co-op. When do students begin interviewing for a co-op? The first semester of the 2nd year? I know the answer to that, I think.
Yeah, second year.
Yeah,
second
year. It usually depends what track they're on. So,
right,
yeah.
Right.
So we'll take one final question. We had talked about the NUN students. Should they, can they be part of this, and when?
Of the dialogue?
Mm-hmm.
I think the NUN students, one thing I would strongly encourage NUN students is to explore the website and look for the priority deadline and reach out to a GEO advisor. So someone like myself, we advise by country, and if you look up a program, so if you're thinking like, I'd like to go to Japan, on that page for the program in Japan, you'll see a woman's name's Lauren in our office. So they could contact Lauren and say, I'm on NUN, is this something that I need to meet the priority deadline, or do you think it'd be better to come back and meet with the faculty? And we can give you advice based on that. It's definitely encouraged across the board if you feel like confidently this is the program I want to do to meet the priority deadline. And all of the application pieces can be done from anywhere in the globe. So we have students on co-op applying, students on NUN. So.
Someone's asking what is NU, and we'll conclude with that question. NUN is when some first-year students go abroad to study for their first, for the fall semester, and then they return to campus in the spring. So I do want to thank all of my colleagues today. Thank you so much for such an informative session. Keep in mind that if you do have questions, the email address is parents@northeastern.edu, and I will make sure they do receive the message. We did record this session, and we will be sending out the slides, so if you want to review it later, we'll be having that available later in the week. And I just want to conclude that at the end of the session, we will be taking a short survey. If you could take a few moments to fill it out, we really do want to hear your opinion on future webinars and topics of interest to you. So again, thank you, and have a good evening.